Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new LEGO Monkey Kid May's Guardian Dragon. This set retails for an unfortunate $75 but a much more reasonable €53 and 47 British pounds, and will release on June 1st, 2023. Special thanks to the LEGO Ambassador Network for sending me this set, although, as you're about to find out, all of the thoughts and opinions expressed in this review are absolutely my own, including the fact that, for whatever reason, it is really overpriced in the US. That being said, it is a really exciting set. This is honestly one of the best LEGO Dragon builds they have ever done. I cannot wait to showcase this, so without further ado, let's jump right in to the review. Okay, so here we have set number 80047. This is May's Guardian Dragon, retailing for €53 and $75. Weird. Anyways, we'll get to the price at the end of the video. I first want to talk a lot about the build, the building techniques, the aesthetics of the model, and the minifigures. So you know what, let's actually start off with the minifigures themselves. We get, for the first time, celestial armor outfits for Mr. Tang here, which is a really nice outfit. I talked about this a lot on the mega review that I posted showcasing all the figures in the new celestial armor for the first time, but I think it's really cool how they have team uniforms and yet every single torso is different. For Mr. Tang, this minifigure has his staff emblem on the sides of the armor itself. I really like how they added that detail in. You also have some nice detailing in the dark red on the back of the torso itself, and he is just using the standard headpiece that we have seen from Mr. Tang in the past, with the glasses off, eyes closed expression there, and then the more dubious expression on the frontier, which is a fun one to get. May reappears in her celestial garb, which we did see in the first half of the year, but it is still good to see this again. We have dragon emblems and a green color scheme instead of Tang's dark red, which I think is a really nice detail showcasing that while they are wearing the same style of armor, they do have very distinct details to them. On the back here, you can see that they have different types of designs. Mr. Tang has that staff design on the back as well, while May has something that looks a little bit closer to dragon scales. Unfortunately, LEGO seems to have stopped giving May her helmets, which is a bit of a shame because I really did like it when they did give her helmets, but right now they are just using the standard face as well as the hairpiece with the green printing on the sides of the hair. Next up, we have two returning minifigures from the first half of the year. This is the Yellow Tusk Elephant. This is a really cool minifigure and honestly one of my favorite figures from the Monkey Kid range in general. He is using a recolor of the Star Wars Praetorian Guard armor in purple, which is very cool. A special mold for the elephant headpiece here, which is something that feels very reminiscent of the initial concept art for Legend of Chima. He is also using this kind of braided hairpiece on the back here, originating from the Spider Clan from Monkey Kid, as well as two large drum-like clubs for his weapons. Now, unfortunately, the thing that I do kind of wish they did for this minifigure was, I think it'd be really cool if they made him not quite a big fig, but if they made him something closer to, say, Axel from Nexo Knights with a much larger upper torso. If you look at how he looks in the show, he is actually bigger than Sandy, and Sandy was a big fig for the first few years of Monkey Kid, so scaling is a little bit off because I feel like if you really wanted to get an elephant-like character, you might want to get a big fig-like figure, but I guess we did already get a humanoid big fig elephant-like character with Mungus from Legend of Chima, the mammoth, so this is something a little bit different. Lastly, we have an Ink Demon General. These don't really appear in the show in this exact form. A lot of the Ink Demons in the show are basically just ink versions of existing characters, tormenting the heroes, taking on different forms, which I think is much cooler than just having a generic ink army, which is what these sets are showcasing because they basically just have to have some sort of cannon fodder villains in these sets themselves. I think they're alright, but they do kind of remind me of the Macaque Shadow Monkey minions, which also did not appear in the show last year, but were just kind of there in the sets to provide something for the heroes to fight. I get it, but not necessarily something that ties into the show for the better, because not having a disposable minion army means that the show can focus on the characterization of the main villain trio themselves. Moving onwards though, I want to talk a lot about the build of the set, so let's set aside the minifigures for now and just take a look at the build in general, because this is a phenomenal build. This is not only, in my opinion, the best dragon that we've ever gotten from Monkey Kid as a theme, but I think it might be one of the best dragons we have ever gotten from LEGO. And that is saying something, because we get a lot of insane dragons, especially from LEGO Ninjago, but this is on a different level. So the first thing I want to talk about here is the design of the head, because the head is something that feels very special to me. As you can see, Monkie Kid, other than Ninjago, is not relying on molded dragon heads. Instead, they are doing fully brick-built heads, which means that the construction of this head is fully unique. It is really nice and special. You can open the jaw up and down. You have a really nice color gradient from the white transitioning to the gold, and then to the deeper greens, the limes, and the teals, which is, of course, May's color scheme, just different shades of green. The only downside to the head is that you can't turn it back and forth, and that is specifically because of the way the head is mounted. As you can see, they have introduced a brand new ball joint piece. This is a specialized piece right here being used for the ball joint itself, and it is a basically elongated version of the mixel joint or mini ball joint, but unfortunately because of that, you just can't move it back and forth. Like, this is pretty much just stuck as it is, so that means that when you mount the head on, you can't have the head look back and forth, which I feel is a bit of a miss. You can have it kind of shake side to side and go up and down like so, but I definitely feel that LEGO just hasn't quite learned the lesson that they did clearly learn back in the Bionicle days of just putting a ball joint on the neck and having the head connected by a socket that would have solved all the issues, but instead they've chosen not to do that and just kind of have this awkward attachment for the head, which makes it impossible to move. But otherwise, it is a nice looking build. Again, the construction of the head is fantastic, phenomenal. These are printed, which is very nice. It is 2 new prints, one for the left and right eyes, so you have specialized prints for the dragon eyepiece itself, which is very, very nice. And this is just the perfect ornate dragon head. I am a huge fan of the way that this all worked out, and I definitely do appreciate the way that this is done. Now, moving onwards to the rest of the build itself, you have a really nice intricate front crest of the dragon, and this is again one of my favorite things about this build is that this feels very unique to me in that you have a Kid Orange or Flame Yellowish Orange sticker here for the kind of emblem of the dragon, but you've also got these Exoforce robot arms arcing around the side of the construction of the torso itself, making it have this very unique type of blend for the actual lime element right here. It's super unique, and it feels just a lot more intricate and ornate than we've basically seen in a lot of other Ninjago style dragons, which is something I really do appreciate. Moving onwards, as we make our way down throughout the rest of the body, you may notice that this is doing something very special in the fact that the entire body is mounted at a bit of an angle. In the way that it stands normally, this is just taking studs and putting everything at an angle on the side, which is a really interesting and inspired way of creating the torso. It really does allow you to feel like this is going outside of the LEGO grid. The dragon's body feels very organic when it's curving around. That is absolutely fantastic. I love the detailing of the scales and spikes on the back of the dragon. It looks so, so good, and I especially love the way that they've used the macaroni pieces, these 3x3 macaronis, to allow you to actually have the limbs feel like they are kind of protruding out from sockets, which is a very, very nice detail. Now, the upper limbs themselves are mounted on ratchet joints, which I think makes a lot of sense for this particular style of dragon. The wings are not super big because this is supposed to be a Chinese-inspired dragon, which obviously they did not really have that many wings, if at all, so this is a very nice detail to have. I do kind of wish that you could at least rotate the wings back and forth, especially because this very large circle feels like it is meant to be rotated, but I guess you can just rotate the entire limb if you want to do that, to have it in a more flying position, and otherwise you can have the wing just be angled upwards or downwards. Not a ton of motion there, but I don't think you necessarily needed that much motion. Working our way down to the front legs here, one thing I do really like is the usage of these flower petal elements to act as kind of frills or almost ornamental armor designs to allow the legs to protrude out like so. That is a very cool technique in the way that they've done that. Big fan of how that looks in general. And as we move our way onwards, we have a recolor of the cloud element in gold, as well as the gold LEGO Marvel Eternals blade piece, which all looks really good to form the shaping of the wings, especially with that cloud motif repeating throughout the set itself. And then you get to these slightly more simple back legs, which still do the job just fine. And of course, on the back of the tail, I love how consistent the color scheme is, where you have teal on the underside, bright lime outlines, and mostly having it have a white and gold exterior, which is a lot of colors, but they actually work really well. Now, one thing that Ninjago dragons and other LEGO dragons do in general that I am usually not a big fan of are these pieces, which is basically the tail swing pieces. I usually don't like them because it means that it can't hold a pose, and sometimes it curves way too much around the body itself.
but the way that they're done here is actually really good in my opinion. I am actually a big fan of how this turned out because they've added enough stoppers in the flexibility of the tail to make this feel like a very unique type of shaping to have it be curved around. I'm definitely a big fan of how that was done. Now, typically, I don't normally like this, but because they have added extra pieces to prevent the tail from curving in on itself and say bending all the way back in, I do actually kind of like how this does add a play feature and how natural and organic this looks. If you just place the dragon on the ground like this, my least favorite thing about the tails normally is that they just don't look right, and if they're curved up way too much, it doesn't look right. However, placing the dragon like this looks pretty perfect to me. This feels like how I would pose it. Even if they were just ball joints, that is a really cool way to have things be set up. So I definitely am a big fan of how this was aligned. I really do like the overall design of the tail itself and how it feels very organic and curves around the body, and that's one of my favorite things about this model. Now, the one thing that I do want to note is that when you actually have May as a minifigure mounted, it does feel a little bit awkward to me because of the way that the body is made where everything is at a slight angle, it feels like she's almost like slouched down or standing. I don't necessarily know how to describe that pose, and the chair is curving around her. Personally, what I would like to do to display this model is just to not display it with minifigures, put the minifigures on my minifig wall, and then close this up. And that just feels like another part of the spikes with the golden spike piece here. So thankfully you can close it up. I don't know if this was like intentional, if they intended for you to be able to do that and make the saddle feel like a seamless part of the dragon, but it's something that I personally would like to do just to make this feel like its own maybe either energy manifestation or its own living creature. Although it is somewhat robotic, I feel like you would kind of get something like that out of this build. So overall, this is a phenomenal build. There are no questions about it. It is done really well. It has such a unique curvature to it. I love the way the body is curved. It feels very unique in the way that things are built in general. It is a very unorthodox structure for building a Lego dragon. What's not to like about this build? What's not to like, at least if you live in North America, is the price. Because the price in North America is a very ridiculous 75 US dollars. I live in Washington State, which means that if I were to have bought this myself, that is another 10% sales tax on top of that, which means I would be spending another $7 or $8 on top of this, and that brings it over to over $80 for a build like this. That is not right. That just does not feel right to me. I honestly don't really know what LEGO was doing with the price here, and it's very obvious that in every other region of the world, it's priced pretty okay. 53 euros, which roughly translates to around 56 to 58 US dollars, feels good for this. Like $60 for this feels pretty okay. Would I have liked it to be 50? Yeah, but I understand like it has a lot of detail. There's a surprisingly high amount of pieces just included in the set itself. $60, fine. Maybe like that's a little high, like 55 would be great, but 60 is okay. Which is the price that it costs in most of the world. If you do the currency conversions, in Australia, this costs $56. In Austria, Belgium, France, Germany, $58. When you convert the price directly from euros and the Australian dollar to the USD, it's $56 to $58, which is, I think, how it should be. For whatever reason, which is very strange, this is most expensive in the US, which is usually not the case for LEGO sets. It is usually cheaper to buy LEGO sets just in general in the US versus any other region, especially Denmark. Things are stupidly overpriced in Denmark. Everything is way too expensive in Denmark. But you know how much this costs in Denmark? It costs 71 US dollars. That is still less than the 75 they are charging in the US. So I don't know what is going on with the price here. And while this set was sent to me for free, and I do really appreciate LEGO for doing that, I want to remain an unbiased reviewer. I want to say things how they are. And if I see something overpriced, I will call it out for what it is. This should not cost $75 in the US. Is it a phenomenal build? Yes, I love the build. It might be my favorite set of the wave, build-wise. But price-wise, LEGO is not cooking with this one. I do not know what LEGO was doing when they set this at $75 US. It's very clear to me that this was designed at a $60 price point, or even a $55 price point, because that's how much it costs everywhere else in the world. Just not in the US. So That's enough I can say about that. I could go on and on about how I don't understand why things are more expensive in the US versus everywhere else. I would rather prefer everything be somewhat localized, but maybe LEGO has just realized that people are, I don't know, willing to spend more money on stuff like LEGO in the US, and that's why they're upping the prices. But it's weird that it just happened to this one set, and all the other sets in the wave are, like, priced okay. They're not amazing, but they're not that expensive. This feels egregious in the US, and I simply cannot in good faith recommend anybody in the North American region to buy this at the price it's at. I hope that LEGO will learn from this. I hope that they will put it on sale at some point, because it is a phenomenal set. And I do think it's a shame because people will not be able to get this because it's too expensive for what it is. But hopefully fans all around the world in any other region other than the US can enjoy this for around $55 to $60, which I think is a pretty fair price point, especially in comparison to the US, and overall, it is a phenomenal build. The designers knocked it out of the park with this one. I love the head design, I love the body design, everything about it is fantastic. The build is one of the best builds we've gotten from Monkie Kids so far. It is one of the standout sets of the wave, among a wave and waves of standout Monkie Kids sets. So, I love the build, and I sure don't love the price. That is all I have to say about the set, and that is it for this review.
Alright, and with that we have summed up our review of May's Guardian Dragon. This is a really cool set that unfortunately probably won't perform too well in the US because of the crazy price, but I certainly hope it does well in other regions because this is one of the best LEGO dragons that they have ever made. Huge fan of this build, and of course I do want to hear your comments down below, so let me know, what do you think of the set? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? What do you think about that price? And of course, thank you all so much for tuning into Duck Bricks. Be sure to like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. Thanks so much, and bye for now.